Welcome, everybody. I'm Julia Scott, Vice Chair of the Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we will start with a moment of reflection. Thank you. So I'll start by reading our Indigenous Acknowledgement Statement. We would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, Region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, and Wyandot peoples. Apologies for my pronunciation. So we'll take a look at the agenda. So we have a number of items under our regular agenda, and then we have a scheduled in-camera session at the end. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda? I'll just read it, that the agenda of October 19th, 2023 be approved as circulated, including any items added to the agenda, which there are none. Okay. Marie, seconded by Pat. Chris, sorry. Oops. I would like to ask at this time whether anybody needs to declare any pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Any conflicts? Seeing none, we shall move forward. Okay. Before we get into the reports, I'd like to make a motion that we receive the action plan update, the CEO service update, and the finance report for Q3. Can I have a mover? Chris, seconded by Marie. Thank you. Previous minutes. No, I was not at this meeting. Neither was Chris. So
Joanna's on the line if she wants to vote on those, or we could also defer those to the November meeting.
I think
I was there.
You were there?
I was here.
So will you move?
Yeah.
Okay, and Joanne, you'll second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Item E, communications with the board. We have no scheduled deputations. We have not that's E1, E2, public input on the agenda.
No public are present today.
No public are present. Thank you, Sabrina. And E3, correspondence. We do have a resignation from the board from Pat Wright. So we were notified of this a few weeks ago, and now we have her resignation letter. So we have to make a motion to accept with regret Pat's resignation. So that will be Chris, seconded by Marie. Thank you.
So just for information, I will be sending that notice to the clerk today. The question that I had of the board is, do you want to make a recommendation to council that it leave the board at the current complement, since you still have 6 members remaining? We're required to have between 5 and 9. So we're meeting the standard. Or would you like for them to do the norm, which is to appoint another member and put out a call?
What is quorum? How close are we to quorum?
Quorum is 50% based on wherever you are.
Okay, so what's it?
So at 7,
Six?
at 7, we need 4. And at 6, we would need 3. And
My preference would be we go for another member, just because it seems there's a fair bit of workload and we're still early in our term. Who knows, somebody else might be gone like 2 years from now. And then we might stay put, but right now we're all early in our term. So that would be my bias.
Okay,
So if that's the preference of the board, that's the norm. So it's simply notifying the clerk of the resignation. We'll put that into motion.
can I ask how long you had 7? Has it been historically since you've been here that we had 7? Didn't we have a lot?
When I started, that was one of the pieces that I brought to the board to look at. And ultimately, the decision was that we didn't need more people at the board table to manage and govern the public library as we did to govern council. So we said we should be at a similar complement of the 7. So that's where they came up with the number.
Okay. So 7 was a number that was felt to be appropriate, so that
Yes.
would make sense that we stick with that then. And say we would like to,
Well, just based on our action plan, there seem to be a lot of items there, and we're looking for
Certainly.
some new workload. And we were talking about delegating people to do this and this and that. I'm just thinking of bodies and sharing that workload.
So I will give notice today to the clerk within 2 weeks. That'll be on the council agenda. And then that will be something that they'll then instruct the clerk to move forward, and they will put out a call,
Yeah.
takes a few weeks for the call. And then it goes back to council, and then they'll appoint. So you should have somebody for January for the new year at this point.
Well, that's my opinion, but I don't know if that's shared by everybody else.
I agree with that because I think some of us are travelers and to get quorum could be difficult if more than one person is
Right.
absent at the same time.
and several of us are seniors, and you never know. Well, you just never know if one of us was ill or.
Easy, no,
Well, hope
easy.
just indisposed and not the other.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay, Joanne, are you okay with that?
Yes, I actually agree. I think it's a really great point. We'll go with the traveling point as opposed to the age point. But yeah, no, I think it's wise over the long haul to have another member.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So do we need a motion for that?
No, we've just done the motion to accept the correspondence, and I will pass that on, and we will thank
Okay,
Pat for her service. We know it was a conflict, and she made a decision to stick with the one that she's been providing service to for a number of years.
yes, yes. It's unfortunate, but we understand.
Most definitely.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item F, strategic plan updates and action items. So Joanne, knowing she was going to be not here in person, did send some questions. Thank you very much, Joanne. Those were really helpful. So why don't we take a look at the action plan update first. So I don't know, Sabrina, did you want to just sort of summarize the areas before we start, or do you want to dive right into the question?
If you have questions, I'm happy
Okay.
to look
Start
at
there.
any of the pieces that you have questions on.
Okay, so CH 2.4, which is develop a 2023 outreach strategy. Which is up on the top of page 2. Joanne's just asked if we've seen this document, and just want to acknowledge that this would have been early in our tenure, so we may have seen it at that point.
No, so this is an operational item. Certainly, if we wanted to put governance aspects onto it, we could be looking at that as well. But this was a case of where are the staff going to be doing community outreach? So are they going to be at the Sunday market? Are they going to be at a pop-up library at the beach? Are they going to be doing something at Ravenna Hall? So they go through and they look at a typical year of programming and where we can be in the community. So certainly if we want to look at a governance aspect of that and you want to look at the advocacy outreach, we can be looking at that piece as well.
Okay, so this is really staff related?
It is,
and that's-
it's an operational one.
Okay.
So the lead on that one is the CEO, but it's really our programming
Okay.
team that does that.
Joanne?
Yeah, yeah, I'm just stepping in an elevator. Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, yeah, we can hear somebody else, but are you? Were
Go
you
ahead.
were you trying to comment on the outreach?
Well, no, I think we lost her now.
We might have
Oh,
lost
yeah.
her
that
for the,
one,
yeah.
But in the
Oh,
meantime,
but she's on,
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
yes,
Okay, can you hear me now?
yes.
Sorry. 10:02. Yes, so my question, so it said strategy, which to me says there are parameters around how we're choosing places, advocacy, et cetera. And so I was just wondering, again, as a board, just coming to understand that, and it's in place. I understand it's operational, but it was more to understand if, you know, if we're looking at how we deliver services, for us just to have a little more background. And if you had a strategy together, just again, it's more about the board understanding the strategy, like, as I said, as opposed to the actual plan, what the strategy is, so that we can speak to that should council, should any of our conversations, you know, it come up in conversation.
Certainly. So the strategy that we look at really is trying to make sure that we are in all places of our community throughout the year. There are certain locations that are better than others to be able to reach people. And it's more than just the pop-up programming services, but also making sure that there is, you know, a day that we were in Ravenna Hall that we're just sort of working and people can come to us and we're programming. We're pushing that information specific to a part of our community. And then making sure that we're hitting our various ages as well. So whether it's children's programming or children's materials being brought somewhere, that is kind of our big piece when we're looking at it from a strategy aspect, is all areas of the community geographically, and then our key centers of population, and then going to some of the larger programs that are happening in the community, so that we A, have a presence, and then B, if it's appropriate, can do some sort of programming. Programming doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's simply being there that is enough.
Okay,
So certainly
thank you for that. Yeah.
I think that's something though that might be what we want to look at as you're looking at your developing of next year's action plan. Is this something that is going to become a 24 outreach strategy that is CEO and board, that's also looking at other aspects that you want to look at to put into that might be, you know, an advocacy piece, or having board members who are out in the public as well. So whether you choose to do that or not, that's a layer certainly that fits in there if you were interested.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to resourcing, and that was
Yes.
also my question. So, you know, if we're not getting a physical building or expansion, you know, what is the, you know, is the budget adequately supporting resourcing for even greater outreach, because we don't have physical space? So that was sort of where that was coming from. So thanks.
Correct.
Thanks, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it says complete, so that means that you've achieved what you guys had set out to do?
The strategy is developed early in the year, so we make sure that we have a game plan of where we're going to be and what we're going to do. So
Well, that doesn't
the
mean
doing it
it's
is still ongoing. Yes, the
Okay.
developing of that plan for what we're doing and how we intend to be in different places and hit different parts of our community. That's what we usually do in that January, February, March.
Okay, so right now, what this report is saying, the strategy is completed, but the actions linked to it are not completed, which will be reported on at a later time frame. Is that correct?
Right, because we're still going on hitting the different areas in
Right.
different places.
Okay. And does that then come in on an annual report?
Well, really, it's collected in our stats. So that would be a case of, if you would like those types of pieces individually reported out, we can say how we did them and what we did, but it all comes into, you know, the statistics that we're gathering on where we are and what we're doing, and why our numbers are where they are, because we don't just live in the building and wait for people to come.
Right.
Okay.
Can additional events and outreach opportunities come up and be added, or is
Certainly.
that set?
Yeah, certainly. And that's usually a case of scrambling when at the last minute somebody is doing, well, the Arts Walk was not one of the things that we planned on doing in March. It was a major piece of what we did in programming, but also it was about that strategy of outreach that we brought community members together in a way that from the 2.2 kilometers, you had artists, you had vendors. So that was a piece that fit directly into our strategy of bringing together people, getting our message out, showing that we're a team player in the community, trying to hit different geographic areas. Certainly something we've been trying to do for a number of years, which was sort of to build this corridor area. It wasn't planned, but it certainly fit in the strategy. And when it was proposed and we started working on it, it just, we find places to make it work.
Yeah, that's great to have that flexibility.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next question. 2.5, expand programs in Craigleith. Joanne is just asking for more information on that. So that would be right under
2.6. Expand
sorry,
programs in the
2.6,
Craigleith area,
yeah.
So that has been really sort of a joyous piece that we've been working on. Really trying to expand what the museum's presence is in the community. Library programs certainly always sort of fall, no matter where we are, the question comes up and we're dealing with those. But really trying to get the museum out of the building and into the community. So the field program that was just done, I think 2 weekends ago, our museum staff were really key on that. So there were, our curator was at one farm field, our museum technician was at another, and they were really involved in that type of piece. We did our fossil program, where we actually went to a construction site, found this fossil that had been reported, brought the fossil back, which was a bit of a beast, had community involvement in that, and then split the rock so that those fossils could be exposed and shown and described. So those are types of pieces that we're trying to get out into the community more in the Craigleith area.
Oh, sorry.
So that would be, I think, examples of that, but our museum staff are working in the community to bring the museum out, but then they're also doing things that are trying to bring people in, so expand what is happening in Craigleith. As it comes to library services, there really is no expansion of library
You're right.
services
Which
there.
is-
Some of the programs we're doing our children's programs also, smaller programs that we can do on occasion in the museum. It's a very difficult place, though, to bring a group of kiddos in because they're so constrained in like one little room that it's not fun. No, it's not a fun opportunity if you want to come in and really do an engaging program, but you know, you've got to stand shoulder to shoulder and you can't bump into something. So it's not a really engaging opportunity. Outside, when we can do the things outside, then we're always doing things with our population outside as well.
Okay, Joanne, did you have any comments on that? Or is that
No,
helpful?
thanks. That, yeah, definitely helpful. Again, thinking about the upcoming conversation. So the distinction between CHD programs and library in Craigleith. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So not in order. We're going back to 2.3. Do you want me to read this, or do you have your document in front of you and do you want to ask a question?
So partner with
Sorry,
TBS and
I'm just trying to load my computer. I've just arrived. I'm just
Okay,
trying to get
never
it.
mind.
Yeah.
I'll highlight it.
Thank you.
You've got it.
partner with Town of the Blue Mountains to expand outreach services into the various Town of Blue Mountain facilities across the municipality. So part of our MOU allows us to use these facilities without cost. It's just a case of working with them to actually get into the place. That's something that we have been working with them to be able to have sites. In Craigleith, we use the community center, small, but we can still do programs and do meetings and do focus groups there. It's a really good site for focus groups, not accessible, but as long as we're in a small group, we've usually been pretty well. Ravenna Hall is accessible, again, fantastic location, good place to do focus groups, to do community meetings, to do, Ashley, our tech help, has set up and just, waited for the people to come with the equipment and see what was needed. We used to bring some materials with us, so library materials, hoping that we would get circulation out of that. And although we did get some circulation out of it, the amount of work and lifting that had to be done by staff, really it came down to a safety issue of what is the worth of carrying things in, setting the tables up to put those heavy equipment on, printing services, all those pieces that we had to bring in that now we just kind of work with what can we do with people. So we've been doing those types of things. Occasionally we have used the arena. We've done some bigger programs there, but usually we can fit in our own facility for our larger programs. It's really about getting to other places.
Okay. Thank you. The 25 outreach services and pop-up library events, which are complete, how can we access these in?
So that is our community hubs 2.5. That would be looking at, I can give you a list of where we've been throughout the year, if that's something that you're looking for. We've well surpassed 25 at this point. Again, every other Sunday, going to the market, various beaches across the community that we've done programming at, predominantly over by the harbor, but we've done some others moving towards our Craigleith area, hitting various Delphi Point and other pieces. Again, then the centers that I've talked about. So being at.
So these are the strategy. Is this like delivering the strategy?
This is the places, yes, places that we have been, whether it's programming or trying to gather information.
Okay, I guess you could probably sense that there's some anxiety with you leaving. We want to make sure we know everything that's been done and know where to access it.
And it feels, because the board is the direct contact with the CEO, like all of this lives in my memory and my history. The staff are the ones that are doing this.
Yeah.
The staff are the ones that are building where they're looking to be in the strategies. The strategy came from the board by making sure that we are hitting our whole community and that we are thinking of the various communities of communities, be that location geographic or be that age or other interest areas. So that's what we're trying to do. So that's the strategy. That's already been dictated by the board as part of our strategic plan, part of our mission, part of our vision. The staff are just taking those pieces and figuring out where we should be, when we should be, how we should be. And even, it doesn't feel like you're away, but doing story time on the front lawn, doing story time in the winter on the front lawn is also one of those outreach activities that people come who have never come before. People drive by and see that. And Jen, our programmer, she has the gear, right? So, you go out there in your ski clothes and it's an hour, 45 minutes of really engaging with people in a different way. So all that to say, it feels as if this is all living with the CEO. This is our staff on a daily basis. So there shouldn't really be gaps or losses. Our CEO is going to take some time to get up to pace on many of the things, but the day-to-day service, the day-to-day activities, you're not going to see a change.
So fielding questions could go to any of the managers. I know there's only one right now, but
of course, yes. We have two because of the museums. We have museum,
Okay.
one library, but yes, with Matt leaves, we have we have some people out. Our remaining manager on site, Elisa, is fantastic. Herself has been a CEO over years. She understands the political needs as well. Our team will keep doing what the team does. So there isn't going to be a loss here. The new CEO will say, where did you go last year and why? And they're going to say it and she's going to go, okay. And is there anything else that can be thought of? And maybe that's added in, but we're not going to have, there shouldn't be a change between 23 and 24.
Okay, thank you for that reassurance. So moving on, Joanne, you had a question about the ES 3.6 and 3.7, creating a community builders webpage. Did you want to elaborate? You were looking for the parameters in the process?
Yeah, sorry, I think I might be connecting in now. Sorry, it took me a while to figure out where the Wi-Fi was. Yes, so the question on that is just, again, you know, all of this is, especially since we are meeting with council in December, is, you know, just thank you for the updates on the programs is, and Sabrina, you've mentioned this, is even though, you know, the anecdotes about what the library delivers in the programs and who's coming are really important. And so, you know, for us having a good grasp or, you know, strong grasp still of the types of programs and where they happen throughout the community is really important. Again, back to the conversation about expansion and needed support. So as it relates to, again, the community builders, I know this has been on the menu, on the, my daughter was just asking me about lunch, on the agenda before. I think it's the question I have is around the actual, like, just any thinking that you've done so far around criteria for who we include and who we don't include. And, you know, if it's not, if again, if it hasn't been done, it hasn't been done. It's just, you know, you've got, you guys have been thinking about this and working on it for a while. It's something that it could take a new CEO quite a while to figure out. So that kind of thinking of the criteria and how and why we would include certain types of businesses or people is really important. And I don't, you know, if it's not ready now, that would be fine. I think that having an overview or even your initial considerations would be really helpful.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, I have my criteria. I will leave that information. I do hope that we're going to get this page started before I leave though. So a few things you said that I think are really important. The community builders for us are not businesses. And that's not saying what the businesses are doing are not community building, but they have their own web pages. They have their own promotion. We're looking at people who are partners with us. So if you are doing a great thing out there, wonderful. Come and be a partner with us. Do a presentation on it. Do a speaker series on it. That makes you a partner. That makes you somehow engaged, and we're happy to support. And a few examples that I will give. The groups that have been doing the butterfly gardens, the natural gardens, people who have been talking about doing natural burials. They have information that they want to share, and they don't necessarily have a company or a non-for-profit. Those are the types of things that we're looking at. People who come here and give these presentations and try to give information to our community, and then the community comes back and they say, you know, I went to a presentation or I missed that presentation and it was 3 months ago, and how do I get a hold of? It's that type of information. So we're not building them websites. Almost like saying meet the team. There's a little blurb about what they do and a way to find them. So this is a case of people that we've worked with that want that information out to the public. Maybe they don't want their email because of spam or whatever. We'll put what they want. They have to give it to us. They have to agree. And it's their responsibility to tell us if things change. So I switched my phone, we have a new email, hey, we got our own website. But it wouldn't be businesses, it wouldn't be companies, because we understand that they are community builders, but they're doing their thing at a different level. This is how do we elevate and support the people who are doing really interesting work as grassroots volunteers that don't have that infrastructure that we can support. And that actually came out of the strategic plan when we did a focus group at Ravenna Hall, is that how do we get the information that you provide in your various speaker series now that they're not all online and you can't go back and find them.
So for example, would one example be when you held there was a session in gallery on how to publish a book? Could be,
It could be, yeah.
yeah.
So
I didn't
it's
go.
just, it's just, people in the community who are doing something.
Knitting,
Well, we also have, our groups and we try to promote those, but if there's somebody who's trying to do something and doesn't have that infrastructure, like how can we help them?
okay,
So how are you gonna make that happen?
We have about 5 people right now that we've asked if they would like to be interested and involved. So it's a case of, I think, starting with the few. It was lovely if we could have launched like a big page, but it's just a few. It'll look much like the Meet the Team. Like I said, just a little blurb that you can kind of scroll down and say, hey, there's people in our community doing this thing. There's, Masters Builder or there's Master Gardener programs in the community. You might read a little something in the review, but not know where to go. You might not know that there's somebody who can actually support these pieces, or clubs that don't have the infrastructure to have large websites, but they're actively doing something, and you can come here on a Tuesday and join them. So it's those types of things that we're looking at.
So is there a point person that's setting that up?
There's nobody heading it up now. It's kind of in our brains. That's the problem, is we need to now get it. The person who had started the concept was one of the staff who has gone on mat leave.
Mary.
Mary, and we didn't want to do it right away because we were switching our website over. And the website launched in January. So, there's no excuse on that. So can't wait for Mary to come back. She's enjoying her
Or
baby.
even I'm asking this, because one of those groups is Pollinate DPM, and so I'm on the ball. with
Yes,
that.
yes.
So,
So I
I'm
think
just wondering how to.
it would take probably about 2 hours of labor to actually do the page. It's not a significant piece. It's just a case now of reaching out and getting information. What's that blurb that you want? Not just saying, yeah, that's a great
Well, if you're
idea.
ready for it, then I can raise that with. 'Cause
Let's do
we'll
it.
have a meeting in December, and then I can ask the question, what do you want?
Mhm.
We have now started our own webpage through town funding, through grants and donations.
Yep.
But,
So then
But
we
it's-
can
it's
put a
creating
blurb in
the
and we can
linkages.
put the link back to your page, that then the rest of it is there. And that's what we're looking for. A lot of people are not doing web pages, they're doing a Facebook page, but we can put the link that says, these are how you're
Yeah.
contacting, this is where you're getting the more information. It's not about saying, this business does great work. It's about these people are volunteering their time
Yeah.
to try to make a difference in our community. They are our community builders. We support them, they support us, but we need to get the rest of the public to know how to get there. So bring that up at your meeting, wonderful, and I will get the page going, and it'll probably
from
from.
Garden Club 599, we don't have a webpage.
That's right, that's another one that I had thought of,
Yeah.
that, there's
There's
a lot of.
questions people ask about it, so.
I was trying to figure out, can I split my plants now? Because as I move, I don't wanna take too much out of the garden, because it still has to be beautiful for whoever buys my home. But at the same point, if the hostas are this big, you can easily quarter those or third those and
You
start.
sure can.
Yes, and you should, because they get to,
Well,
is
yeah,
this the right
sooner
time?
you get them into their new location, the better, then they have an opportunity to
Yes.
root. But yeah, so, and we have master gardeners in the Garden Club 599, and so they can, the local group, there is no local group, but it's Owen Sounds
Mhm.
Master Gardens. But they are trying to promote themselves too, so.
So these are the types of things that I think are what would people want if you wanted more information, if you wanted to be involved in something, if you wanted to do something on your own, but you need that extra step. I know people had talked about, there was a program that was quite popular about 10 years ago, Check Out a Human Book. That you could have somebody that would be at a table and you could just go and ask them questions, like, I'm ready to build my deck and I just am trying to figure out one thing. It's a great idea, but it's only that person for 2 hours on one Sunday a year. So how do we do the same kind of thing like that so that people can get the information? And really have it be about what these grassroots groups are doing. So, yep, I think it's a good idea. I will have it launched before I leave. It'll probably a case of Franz and I pulling that together. Franz is doing minutes, so I'm sure he has already turned around and asked Elisa to help get that page started so that we will be good to go within a few days.
So the legwork of contacting all the people, other than the ones we've already directly contacted, would that be a task for staff or someone on board?
I think that the first thing is for us to look through who are the people that we have had that have done presentations, because number one, we want library partners. So we don't want to say we're going to promote somebody that we've never actually worked with. Come here, give a session,
Yes.
be one of our presenters. And then once we've gotten to that stage, then we know that you're part of our team and we will support. So we are looking for some kind of reciprocation, that the community isn't just looking at a website, that they've had a chance to actually hear and talk.
But it's also an opportunity to learn about the particular goals of the initiative and ensure that they're aligned with
Certainly, yes.
the libraries.
So we'll be doing that. We'll probably put something into a newsletter as well, once we've launched it, to say, you know, are you a community partner that maybe you did a program with us 2 years ago and we don't know how to get a hold of you now because your chair is now somebody else, and yeah.
And just how would we, just thinking of worst case scenario, how would we deal with a group who we thought was perhaps not appropriate?
It's our website. It's our website, so we're gonna ultimately have to do some vetting, and again, it's people that we've worked with.
Right, but I'm just anticipating that at some point, somebody may say it's not.
They may come with some demands and say,
Yeah.
I'd like to be included. So we need to be prepared to respond with, okay, here's the requirements. So one, it fits with your strategic plan. It fits with the town council's strategic goals on your
Yeah.
sustainability and environment, and all of that is in there, which I think fits in with what you guys are supporting too. And that you've already partnered with us on a presentation, et cetera, because of an ask from one of our team. So maybe it's just developing that, so we have some
Yeah.
response.
Yeah,
And it's not I think the other piece is that it is not an economic gain.
true.
Yeah.
We're not looking to support individual
So there's
businesses.
no fundraising going on.
That's right. We're looking to support community initiatives that are grassroots driven, that are people like our board standing up and saying, how can we make a difference?
Yeah, that are aligned to our strategy, mission, vision, all those good things. Okay. Okay, thank you. That was a good discussion. I don't know about you, but I do feel as we go further into understanding into this year that things that we heard early on are now starting to really fit into a framework in my head.
Hi, sorry, it's Joanne.
Yes.
I have actually connected through my computer and I'm just waiting to be let in and then I can get off of my phone. Because it's about to die.
Yes, yes.
We had that page minimized as we were working, yes.
No, it's all
You
good.
should be in now.
There you go.
Got it.
Did you get in?
Yep. Okay. Sorry,
Awesome.
I'm making sure I can hear.
We can see your,
We saw your picture, and now we see your name.
that was her phone, maybe.
Yeah, that was, sorry.
I think we have.
Yep, sorry. I'm editing in the Zoom.
You got echo going with that.
Okay, we okay now?
Down to one, we're good now, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was painful.
Okay, thanks. Okay, all right. So, last but not least, related to the action plan document, is the status of charitable status. Obviously, this is complex, it's not complete. How do we make sure we don't drop any balls?
Yes, so that is, I'm just looking up our number. It is our organizational excellence number
3.2.
3.2. We've just completed last month the new articles of amendment that needed to be done. They're reviewing our bylaws now based on those amendments to make sure there's nothing that needs to be edited in our bylaws so that we can now move forward for that application, resubmission of the application. Again, everything is meeting ANCA, the Ontario Non-for-Profit Corporations Act, which technically says it's a 2010, but we know just came in last year. It's already quite outdated, so I do anticipate a quick revision on the ANCA in probably about 2 years by the time they get through it. It just sat for 13 years, 12 years before they passed it. So our application for CRA was submitted originally. It was right over the crossover period. It was rejected because of ANCA issues. And having our company registered in a certain way by our ministry. So that was all taken care of. We now have the appropriate corporate business number. We are officially a non-for-profit in our own standing, not just as the Public Libraries Act states you are. There's a number affiliated. We had to have articles of amendment completed to meet ANCA. That was just done last month. And that was what you had done your e-poll to make that adjustment. Those were signed by all members of the board, approved by all members of the board, and then signed by the chair and vice chair. That has now been submitted back for Ontario, who has approved all of those changes. So then Ontario is finished. And that was when we gave the bylaws, and the bylaws are being compared to the articles of amendment to make sure that the bylaws that you read here, that there's nothing that might be offside with the charitable piece. If there is, we'll make that adjustment, but there shouldn't be. Once that piece is done, then it gets submitted. So the odds are it's going to be submitted in either late December or in January. This is a piece that I will be working closely with our new CEO on, and will certainly be available for, because there's some history that although it's written down and it's available to her, there's just questions that come up that often are easier to just make a phone call or send a quick email than to try to figure out how and why. The individual at the Ontario Library Service, who is also tracking our progress, because we are the guinea pig of libraries post-ANCA going for status. Pre-ANCA, it was just done. Now it's a project to be done because Ontario Non-for-Profit Corporation Act doesn't see libraries as a non-for-profit corporation. So that's what slowed it all down. Our ministry says we are, they say you don't have a number, so you're not. So CRA says, well, whatever they say goes. If you aren't registered in your province, we can't look at you. So all of this was two ministries not talking to each other and us caught in the middle. We know we qualify. Historically, we qualify. There are over 300 library systems and more than half of them have some form of charitable status, whether it's the library, a friends group of the library, or a foundation of the library. So more than half have the status historically. It's just nobody has tried to do it other than us since ANCA. So the individual at the Ontario Library Service who has been tracking what we're doing, and we're giving sort of updates because they wanted to use us as a case study, is retiring today.
Oh, great.
So we will be working with whoever our new rep is to make sure that they are following up on this, because this is a matter that needs to go to our ministry to say this is an unacceptable outcome of that. And do they need to just simply in one batch acknowledge all the public libraries in Ontario and give them a corporation number so that it
Yeah, that
fits?
would make sense.
One ministry not talking to the other ministry, and that's why we are now 2.5 years.
And the
into trying to do
benefits,
this.
can you just summarize the benefits of being a charitable
Yes,
organization?
so
Corporation?
the biggest thing is grants.
Mhm.
We are not looking to do anything different in our community, and the community actually said, don't come to us. We give money through taxes. We don't want to have people's hands out all the time. So this is not about trying to make more money in our community. This is about how do we look for grants, donations and foundation areas that will only consider you if you're a charity, and they won't consider the municipal body as who they're willing to work with. So there are a number of large foundations. There's, things like GM, who has education programs. Ford, I'm just thinking of like the car companies, but they all have programs that you can apply into, but they're not going to give a municipality money. And that is who is our charitable body right now, is we can give a tax receipt through our municipality. So if somebody was to come to us in the community and say, I would like to offer you the baby grand, like we did, we had an assessment. We then went to the municipality and they gave the appropriate tax receipt on behalf of us. We can do those things already. So it really is about the outward look for money. And there's a lot of money out there. It's just a case of, are you going to start writing? And that is part of what our manager of community engagement and outreach was going to be doing before she went on her mat leave. We did a lot of work searching through databases and finding where the money was, when the grant opportunities were, so that you know that it only happens on October 1st. And these could be put into a calendar. So you start looking at that in August to get the new criteria and have it ready to go. But it needed a charitable number that was not a municipal number.
So that would be linked to asking or looking for money to support programs, because I don't think it applies to capital expense.
There's very little out there for capital. So it really is, you're right, about programs, initiatives, services, not about capital. They'll do minor capital. So if we needed to get new computers for our public areas, if we wanted to do something on security or an initiative, like one of the programs we were looking at was a women's health program that really interested us. There was a point where communities were getting pads, tampons, deodorant, things that any woman might need who might not have access to.
Counseling sometimes.
And well, it was just about putting things in bathrooms. So being able to put, a box that has tampons in it or pads, that it's just in the bathroom and there's nothing obtrusive about it. It's just, if you need it, you take it. And our community didn't qualify for the grants that were there because, again, they wanted it to be as a charitable entity. Libraries qualified, foundations would qualify, but only with the charitable number. Grey Bruce was doing that and putting them in, but they really focused on urban and communities who had a very high, high rate of low economic status. And that's not seeing the trees through the forest. There are many girls who don't have things at home, that come from wealthy communities. It's just one of those pieces that, young girls tend not to have the products that they need, often because they don't ask. So, and then to say that we don't have homeless communities here, or economic communities, or people are pinched to make, ends meet, it just made sense. There was the opportunity for open kitchens that we had looked at. So being able to use our refrigerator and our kitchen just to put basic stocks in that you don't have to ask, you don't have to come to the desk, you don't have to check out, you don't need a library card. You simply know that if there was something that you needed that day, it's there. And there was a program that we could have gotten a $25,000 grant that would have helped us over the year to do that. Programs that we can do, but we can't fund. So that was where these types of charitable grants bring in the ability to have other supports. Wasaga Beach has a program, it's very successful, and they are now struggling because they're trying to fund it. And if we're looking at what we do and what our mandate is, it's outside of our mandate to fund
Yeah.
hygiene products and to
Yeah.
fund food products. But at the same point, we know our community needs things. We know we could be partnering with BVO. We know we could be partnering with a vendor who can then provide back. But it's just stymied by
The lack
of the lack of a CRA charitable number that qualifies. So that's really all it is. We will not be using our charitable number for cash donations and for any donations that are typical to the library that can go through the municipality, because it is less work than for us to have to put that onto our 3010, which is the report that needs to be done at the end of the year. So really trying to think it through and streamline the work we need to do. Council already has a finance department who is well skilled at tracking our typical donations. They give out the receipts, it's all done and processed for us, and then we would have these 3 grants that we would have to list on a form, for 100,000 or something like that. So very like small potatoes work, but it certainly will help.
So is it essentially that those companies who are making the donation can't use it as a tax write-off if it's not coming to a nonprofit?
Probably.
Technically, it is going, if it went to council, they would still get the tax receipt. I think it's that they are not willing to give to municipalities or counties who they feel should be doing services on their own, and not realizing that the library is providing the service and it's not the municipality. So it is a judgment call on them how they do them. It really is not anything legal. It's about judgment on where they give. And to us, we qualify. The municipality in those cases do not.
Just want to acknowledge, Sean, you're looking very dapper. What are you dressed in? Is that obviously it's a kilt, but is that a uniform?
Yeah, I would just put it on, especially when it's cold.
And there's more to it than that, no?
Well, it's just just playing the funeral. So,
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah,
Well, thank you.
I made it. Plus,
Yes, you
I had an enjoyable drive, 50 kilometers an hour all the way from Meaford to Thornbury.
Oh.
There was a grader on the road.
Oh,
You're invasive.
No, you know what? I've always just let that go.
yeah, yeah. Good
Everyone
for
else can
you.
lose their mind behind me, but
Thank you. Okay, so we are, Joanne, does that satisfy your comment about the charitable status?
Yep, just one other question then, just for clarity, is in going forward, once we get status, the responsibility of writing the grants and all the communication, everything will then come through the CEO. It doesn't come through, yeah, so we have and the money itself comes through, so CEO directly into the bank, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay, great, yep. Thank you.
Okay, so,
On that one, there may, once it's done, my recommendation, and this is something that I will be discussing with the CEO, who will then bring it back to you when that day comes. My recommendation is that we have a separate and distinct checking account. We already have a checking account, but that any of our charitable money funds, just for tracking, get put into that account so that any payment is cut out of those checks, which makes it very clean. So then there's no difference on what the town is doing for us. And they have a clean bit of numbers to work with. We have a very separate checking account for those few charitable numbers that are going, items that are going through that are very specific. And then checks would be signed in-house, just as we do now, one signature by one of the two board signing members and one by the CEO. But when it comes to doing the reporting, there is no difference then for the audit that we receive from council. And then those charitable items are separate and distinct, with 1, 2, 3, 4 items in a year coming through. That makes it very easy to do the T3010 at the end of the year. So that's my recommendation. When that day comes, the CEO will come back and request a checking account to be opened, and then you can work with the bank to do that. But that would
Yep.
keep accounts very clean.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to F2. And that would be item number 1 is just to update on the council response committee. So we have not met since we met, what was that, 2 weeks ago? But we have a plan. Joanne and I are looking at some dates for next week, so we'll talk to you about those after, Sabrina. And that's with regard to the goal of having a sort of a final draft usage and needs assessment at our next our November board meeting,
Okay.
in advance of our December meeting with council.
So the December meeting of council needs to be rescheduled.
Okay,
Which actually I'm happy about, because I was a little uncomfortable with the first 2 or 3 hours of the CEO's job being in a council meeting presenting. She starts on December 4th, and we would have introduced her, which would have been lovely, but it would be a very uncomfortable position, I think, being there when things are being described that you're just saying,
yeah,
do your thing. But that's aside, they're going to be doing renovations in the council chambers of their tech. They need 2 weeks. It is happening during that time. So they are asking us to move it. And they have given us 2 dates, which are being brought to you to make a decision. One is November 30th, and that would be a morning. The other is December 20th, which also would be a morning. It would be lovely to get it done before
Yes,
the
it would.
new CEO. But the SROI, which was supposed to be released in September and then was supposed to be released in October, is now supposed to be released in November. They're just dealing with French translation and making it pretty and all the other things they need to do to release it publicly, but it just keeps getting pushed. So if we are November 30th, the SROI is not going to be part of that, but it will be, hopefully we'll have received it, that we can kind of say we're doing it. And then there'll be another meeting that you would have to go back to do that, but that would probably just be the CEO and the chair doing a, 15-minute deputation. We could ask for a few extra minutes planned in instead of it being a separate meeting.
well, I think,
So you can choose between the 2 dates.
so Joanne, I would think we'd want to get this done November 30th.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And if we don't have the SROI, we can introduce I think the opportunity is to introduce what it is.
Yeah.
Sort of like introduce it once, and then we do that follow-up meeting where, okay, so we spoke to you at the SRI, we have the numbers now. So I think that's fine.
I'm happy to assist in doing the SROI after, if our new CEO is knee-deep in getting all of the other things that she's gonna need to get done. That will be a decision between board chair and the CEO when they meet on that first week. If it comes later in the month where it's not gonna be prepared in time.
Okay,
Just thinking the November 30th, we have to have a package to them by the 20th. So at that point, you've lost,
Do
yeah,
we have enough in the package to make our case?
oh, yes, in terms of our own data,
Yep.
our analysis, I definitely think so, and I think just sharing with them the overview of the SROI will be
Yeah.
incredibly powerful, and there is an example of a community that we could refer to.
There are
So
some
they'll be
pieces, there are some
sensitive.
pieces that we can put in where we can talk about what their criteria are and where they're looking. Sort of as a teaser of the types of things that we'll be coming back with. And then hopefully, you know, you can come in, December 20th wouldn't be the date because that's to have a whole meeting. But hopefully in December, you can then come back with some really good news. Or in first week of January, when they're starting to, you know, be in the
Yeah.
middle of their budget, thinking that they're seeing impact.
Okay, so you'll let them know. Are you all in agreement that we go with the
Well,
earlier
the
date?
pressure's on you guys that did the case.
Well, no, I think it's in pretty good shape. We just need to,
It's important that we have quorum because it is a board meeting. So at this point, we have quorum. We're missing only Lori. So we won't have another member by that point. So
yeah,
even if Lori can't make it, we have quorum at this point.
yeah, okay.
And I think December 20th is getting late in the year, in the season, the
Oh, yeah.
all things may be more receptive.
Yeah. Whether, all
Not
the
so
things that
close to-
happen.
Yes.
Yeah, so close to Christmas. Okay,
Works.
okay, thank you for
Uh,
that.
Yeah. Sorry, Sabrina, just a quick question. When you say that they're doing the translation and everything, is that for our specific report or is that the template in
that's-
general that they're putting out? Just sort of
The
what,
template,
just,
yes, the template in general is being put out for all libraries in the province. So it's at marketing, it's being translated, so there are
Okay.
there's Francophone libraries. I've asked just to be given the document and, you know, even though I was on the committee, we're not gonna get an advanced copy.
Yeah.
I said, we don't need it pretty, we just need the stat to be able to start plugging it in. I will try again and see if there's any chance that we can have that as an advanced copy. I think they're also writing the template for the reports, which is the piece that gave the logistical understanding of how the system ran numbers so that you understand what dead weight is and all of these different pieces. I'm assuming that they've done that, but they're working with that in the French end, which
Okay.
gets
Yep.
into different uses of different words and different language, especially when you have specific terms, economic terms. So yes, it's taking them.
it's just the template itself. Okay.
It's taking them much more time than we thought, but the statistical piece is done. It's the translation. Yes.
Okay. Oh, surprise. Okay.
No.
So I have no more information on the multi-use feasibility study. Do you, Sabrina? No?
No, other than they asked some information from me to be able to get in. They asked for our previous materials. So I have given them our 2018 space analysis that was done. I have given them our strategic plan for this year. And I have provided our strategic plan from 4 years ago that shows the continuity of why the feasibility study was done at that point to how we've picked up and moved forward now. So they have those pieces. And that is being used as part of the package. So we know from that
That's
that the
good.
library is included and is going to be included in the package that's being given to whomever our successful proponent is,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Okay, and any information on the Craig Leith Working Group?
No.
Okay.
Has there been any naming of appointment?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, this is me not really understanding how the two groups are different because they are so being described. I mean, even as the same name, names matter. Something will be in front of council on the 31st talking about. This is why names matter. We have a council group that is supposed to be appointed. I don't know if there has been anybody, I don't believe there has, that will be given a terms of reference and a mandate that is the exact same name, and to my understanding, the exact same mandate as what a group of people and a private body are doing on the same name. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know how much is going to be lifted from the Ratepayers Association's group and be lifted into the council mind well of information. If council is simply going to appoint them to do it, it just feels like there's a group that's supposed to happen, but we've been told that isn't the group, but that group is doing the work. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
And yet, there hasn't been anything formally announced since that last council meeting where we made.
And
Without
since
the
then,
map.
there has been a
And that's
second
been
group
months
that's been
ago.
appointed to happen. So there's another group that is, Laura Bay asked to have the same thing. Again, no names. So understandably, there are major infrastructure changes happening in areas, and they want to give a voice, and that is fantastic. My question, and I'm sure other community members have a similar question, is at what point is the voice, an appointed voice by council to bring information to council versus we have
Grassroots.
our grassroots group doing a thing, and I'm not saying they're not doing it, they are doing a thing, but we have no intervention to be able to say, where do these services fit? Especially if at this point they're looking at connections, trails, roads, like that seems to be transportation is a number one priority. So it's a very interesting piece that we've been told, this is the group with council that we're supposed to be speaking with, and that the reports that we give to council would be given to that group. But that group hasn't happened since June. And there's another group who's working full steam ahead with the same name, with the same mandate, and doing it for another body that we don't have access to. So it's a very confusing piece. So I would say that's sort of not really our issue until, because really, it didn't say that we were supposed to speak to them. It said the council staff was supposed to provide our report.
And
Short story is that there's still been no formalized appointments.
Right.
So
So
I'm
it's
not
not,
sure who's ball or whatever, you know, that's in, whether it's CEO, the CAO office. I'm not sure.
so yeah, my thinking though is if we are focusing on 1 and 2, that body is not ours. We have no power over that body. We have no say in that body, whether it is the body of the ratepayers or a body of council. The CEO should just pay attention and watch to see if anything comes up on an agenda. And that's about all and report back. Like I said, there's a new group, Laura Bay, that we may be wanting to look at. Not about new services in the east, but making sure that our Laura Bay newcomers are well informed of what we're doing here. And that's, you know, there's things we can do with all groups. And that's why we said, when we talk about community of communities, we're not just looking geographic. We're not just looking for the socio-dynamic. We're looking at all of these pieces because there's groups everywhere doing things, and we have to make sure that we have some outreach.
Okay, all right. So do we need to discuss the community involvement in I guess we'll talk about the Craiglee Station name change next, because that's the October 31st meeting.
I should have had my hand up. Can I just make a
Oh,
quick
yes.
comment? The Blue Mountain Ratepayers annual general meeting is this Saturday. Yeah, I know that I'm a member. Of course,
I'm going.
Oh, okay, great. I was just going to say it'd be great to have a set of ears there and to ask the question. And I think one of the key pieces that I'm trying to understand, but nobody answers me, is from which geographies within the Blue Mountain, where does the Blue Mountain Ratepayers paid membership base reside? So it really just to understand how representative they are of the entire town of the Blue Mountains. And I hear what you're saying, Sabrina, and you're right. I mean, you know, we need to answer to the town's group when it gets established. I think though, keeping informed of what the ratepayers are doing and just understanding, because if they are, you know, if they are more representative of one group, not that we're not, you know, that's important to us because we also need to understand what services they might need. So anyway, just glad, again, just it was more the AGM. Glad you're going, Julia.
Yeah, I can wave the flag. Okay, so let's move on then to F3, the Craigley Station name change public meeting.
So this is October 31st. There's a divided community. It's there, but the division is a very interesting piece that we're working with when people come up and ask, especially at the museum. There are people who don't know and they don't really understand. And then when we tell them that the Craigley Station, A, is the legal name, is the official name, and is the only name that the town of Blue Mountains has ever sanctioned through the bylaw, which is great, that supports us. The reality is, why are we trying to use this name? Is filling the mandate of bringing the building, the #1 asset of our museum, back to its original condition, its original state. We've brought it back to the original colors. We have done some additional work inside. We've brought the roof to be looking similar to what the roof was. We've done a lot of obviously keeping the building standing type things. But all of this is about going back to the 1886, the Grand Trunk Station, which was the Craigley Station. It just makes sense to use the name. We've had others who are very upset because of financial bits that they don't understand, why we're wasting time, why we're wasting money, why we would want to have a new sign. And I understand that. These are people who are frustrated, not with us, but with the political process of council. And that unfortunately is blowing back on us. The process, which is council's bylaw and council's policy, is you write a report, you make your case. It then goes to the senior management team to vet. They vetted this back in April and said, we have no issues with this. This makes absolute sense. Go ahead. It then took time for our report to come in, which was supposed to be written as a correspondence letter to council saying, we would like to discuss this. Unfortunately, the way the correspondence goes is you can pull correspondence or not. I was present at that meeting. It wasn't pulled. So then we left. The correspondence then got questioned later in the meeting and staff responded to that, but it wasn't us. And the response that was given was their understanding of it, but it wasn't us responding. They then direct council staff to write a report and make their recommendation. That happened. It's not our report, it's council's report. They don't give it to us to say, do you agree with what we've written? So they put it through and people just complained that there was time being spent on this, but this is their own process. At the end of that, they're then supposed to say, the report is deemed sufficient to be able to move forward to a community information session. That's where we are. So on the 31st, we will be there. We will answer questions. We will have information. It's a very short period of time because then council is moving on to 3 other things that day. It's not like we're going to be there having, open house. We are there to say, again, this is why it's your policy, it's your bylaws. This is the legal name. This is why it was the legal name, and we would like to use the legal name. As for the sign, which we've had people complaining about the fact that we're going to spend money on a sign. The sign is council's property. It is the old sign and it was ready to be changed. And we said, stop. We would like to change the sign. We would like to wait to see if the sign is even staying where it is once all of the renovations happened. Now that we're at this point, now we do the sign, and it'll be a sign that'll look like the town of Blue Mountain sign in front of the arena, in front of all of their other buildings. It's the new version. But we didn't want to put the money into doing a sign knowing that we think that it should be changed. So there is no more cost to do this than there would have been had it been done a year ago when it was supposed to have been done.
So I do know Lori is planning to go to that October 31st meeting. I'm not sure if anybody else is.
I'm gonna try to go. Is it
Okay,
9:30? What time is the meeting?
not sure.
Yeah, so I've got it down as 9:30 and I'm also planning on attending.
Or fingers?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have Lori, Joanne, and Marie.
I do feel that it's, so we are actually, or Sabrina, you're actually making a presentation.
Yes, so it will be myself and our curator that will be present. We'll be there also to rebut any comments, should council give us the opportunity to do so, because it's not just us, the community gets to come up and stand. Really, the question that we had in F2 was community involvement. Letters could have come into the clerk, people can be present and speak. And what we know about many of these hearings, it's the people who want to make a statement against that show up, not necessarily the people who want to move forward, because that makes sense and it shouldn't be an issue. It should just be a rubber stamp. So we are looking for people who are going to be present, because we know that we will have a contingent of people who have issue with the process more than the name. As for using the term depot, I mean, we've said it before, it's a station, the train goes by, it stops, it picks up and it continues on. It's not a depot. And for people who are saying, what's the difference? They're people that don't know train history. And it is a train station and we want to use the proper name. And we understand that it was a restaurant, but there is a plaque outside with information about the restaurant. There's a display inside about the restaurant. We are going back to 1886, and this is a train rail station.
Is it also designated an official historical site?
It is,
So
as the
therefore,
Craigleith station.
and so
Yeah.
therefore, would their criteria for a designation include a name that's accurate?
It should be. And council's bylaw from 2003 states that the land and building shall be known henceforth as the Craigleith station.
So hopefully this will be rectified and, it seems like a lot of to do over.
It is a lot of, again, the people who are complaining feel like they're complaining more over the process than the actual activity or event.
And when they hear the whole story, they may just back down.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I think that's where I'm going, is I think it's the simpler we can keep it, the better. And, the community agreed originally, the community agreed to the restoration, to the budget and the restoration to its original status. It's listed historically. This is the name. That's what we're doing. We're completing that process. The community input has been complete. We hear everybody. Thank you. Period.
Yeah.
And
So
the point, and then the final point about the financial implications are zero, because the sign has already been budgeted to be changed to update to the new town branding.
Correct.
So what would be most helpful for us to be there for the Tuesday morning or to send in letters to the town clerk? So is there still time?
There is still time to submit letters for the clerk. There's still time to get people that you have spoken to who have said this makes sense, to put that in writing. That those things need to be made to the clerk.
So which is better?
I think we need both. I think if you can be present, that's fantastic, but it's not about seats. It's about people who are going to speak. Whether it be a correspondence in writing or whether it's people who are going to stand up and say, we feel that this is a non-issue, we should be using the legal name. We respect the history of the museum. We respect the history of the restaurant, but this is the rail station. We brought it back to the 1886 process. So let's just move forward with the name. We need people who are going to tell us.
You don't think it would matter that the fact that we're all on the board, they kind of say, oh yeah, you're already biased?
Well, I think that we need people in the community, and I know board members have spoken to people in the community. Lori had made the comment. She put it out to a group. One person said, no, I prefer the name of the depot because that was meaningful to them, the restaurant. And then a group of 5 were like, yes. So all of those voices need to be in. so that we can speak to what the history of a restaurant was and what the history of the rail station is.
Okay,
Council has to make a decision regardless, and they're gonna make it based on voice.
well, I hope they have some
Council is split themselves.
common sense, I was going to say.
Council is split, just in the
I think that's the
discussions.
key right there.
Council is split based on the discussions.
Okay, all right, well, we'll, I think we should move off on this and not give any more time to it, but, we'll hope that cooler heads prevail. Empowering services, so that is F.4 and Serena, your service update. I just wanted to comment, and I probably am getting to the point where maybe I can answer this question I'm going to ask, but circulation goes down in September from August. Is that the kiddos going back to school?
You know, it's just the fluctuation. I'm not quite sure what did it. Typically in September, we would see our circulation increasing because our kiddos start coming.
Oh, okay, so I
But
was,
I'm not really sure. It's just the
August
bubble
was
of,
August was a busy month.
August was a banner, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that was my one question on the usage overview. Was there any other questions or comments?
I had nothing unless there were
Okay,
questions. Okay.
thank you. So we don't need a motion to accept these, no, okay. So we'll move into other business, which is the finances. The quarter Q3 report. And thank you, Sabrina, for pulling that together. I just had one question, which was about the capital and the strategic plan spend. So capital, I think there's a typo there because the variance, it looks like the column is just added 58 and 68, but what it appears under capital is that we've spent 39,000. This is on page 2, or no, page 6 of the report. 39,000 out of 137,000. So is that just timing?
We have not spent the 60,000 in our furniture replacement.
Okay,
That's a big one. And then books, the invoices come when they come. We have sort of
yeah,
a quarterly invoicing process. We're always at, or even sometimes slightly over on that, because much of it is US pricing. So yes, I would say that our big difference there is not spending in the furniture end. The other one is we are holding back on the equipment purchase, which was to replace the current public system that we have. We've decided to move away from userful, which means the computers are not real. They're just screens and
Yeah.
terminals. And there's one system
Yeah.
that manages 5. We're actually going to full PCs.
oh, okay,
It was a decision that we worked with the town's IT to get some feedback. We did our own research. And in the end, the systems just are not cutting what we need. So we're moving to PCs, but they're significantly more expensive to buy 12 or 13 PCs than there are to do these terminals. So we are pooling the money from the last quarter of this fiscal with January, and then IT is going to be supporting us to do the physical installation and setup of the systems and servers, and that will be sometime in the spring, probably. And then our contract with the current company expires September, so we want to be out of them definitely by June, so that we don't get into summer holidays and all of a sudden we're stuck with another year's worth of a contract with this company.
So you'll be ordering the computer soon then?
Yes,
Before the year end?
yes. It'll either be in the year end or in January, working with the town's IT.
But
Do
if
the
it's in
system.
January, are you in a new budget?
It is, so that will probably be rolling over. We're
Oh.
combining the 10,000. We definitely want to purchase the same systems. Because it's easier to work with all the same systems than it is to work with some, you know, the new model that came out in February, that then you've got slight differences between configuration. So yes, we'll be,
I didn't realize you could roll over a lot of.
Well, they're probably just gonna do the timing, like they'll fix it, so.
yeah.
Some is purchased with the December purchase order and some with.
And yeah, and even if it's not in the December, we can just say this is earmarked for that project, and it just means that next year there'll be 10 under here and you'll have 20 there.
Yeah. And what about the furniture then? Because wasn't that the whole conversation about the front desk? Is that
Yes,
what-
the front desk and actually the computer tables, and we're still just not finding what we need, so we just keep plugging along.
And will that roll over?
It does.
Okay.
There's no clawback from council. That's part of our funding
Okay, great,
agreement.
on our MOU.
The board has the ability to say they would like it to roll over, and it's you rolling it over. It's not like it's them. Those then stay. We then add that into our budget. It will be the budget that comes plus the other stuff that's in the bank, and then we know that we use it. Just like we rolled over 70,000 for wages for 24 and 25, knowing that we were gonna have those 2 hiccup years. So that will then cover sort of the bump between those 2
It's
fiscals.
kind of nice to be in that position. When I worked, we couldn't do any of
Yeah,
that.
it's,
Yeah,
no,
I
it's
still-
still,
Just lost it, you know?
Yeah,
People throw
I'm
it
not
away,
sure why the auditors don't raise a fuss, but let's not go there.
it's earmarked and the board has made the decision that's where they're going, so you've made board policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
When you say in a resolution, it's there, and actually, when we look at the report slightly above that page, the part that I've written. On section E, current standing of accounts and funds. You have, I'm sorry, it's 75,000. You have a board resolution you made on 3/16. It's 2023-026, that's your resolution, and it was for wages. So you have that to be able to, and it sits in our bank. But the open reserve of 98,000 and the 75 are in one big number. But we track that there's a portion of that that is held for wages, that you know you have that piece. So that's, and then the 108 that we have is again held separate, that is, the land reserve is about expansion, replacement, building. Originally it was Ellie Shore, but it's Blue Mountains Public Library now, but should be for, what are we looking at here?
okay, thank you. Any other questions about the finance report?
Right, it's a great question, and I might have misheard. Did you say that the 75 is part of the 90? Sorry, I'm looking at it. The 75 is part of the 98?
No,
It's in addition to, so if. you
In
were
addition to,
look-
okay, that's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair.
so if you look at our bank statement, in our high interest savings account, there's the 108 that's set aside for the land reserve, the 75 in wages, and that 90 plus. So it's a 200 and
Okay,
some odd.
And I
In
believe-
one
yeah,
account,
okay.
we just track what the different lines are. There makes no sense to have multiple accounts in that
Okay.
case.
is there, so we've something called land reserve, we have something, held for wage, so I believe that the one that we have identified for wages, we can't now turn around and use that for something else? Or do we have to pass a bylaw?
Well, you would have to pass another resolution changing that resolution.
Okay,
I
Okay.
guess that's kind of the going joke, that a resolution is as good as the next resolution that changes
okay,
it.
no, I just want to understand, again, as we look at the total budget, and we say what's available, if there is
Yes.
anything that absolutely, like development charges, those have been, those are assigned for physical building assets.
Those are a
So,
bit different because those are legislated.
yeah, I get, so I
right.
just want to make sure there's nothing in our budget that is in the same, that's like, and if it is, just so we're really clear, what dollars have been specifically stated and must be spent on X.
Yes, and I have the draft budget made that I'll be presenting to our CEO, and then she can present in. But the draft budget lists the wages as a separate line, that revenue, and tracks that expenditure from the year to year, so that you have that included in with that sort of deficit that you would have normally had from just the council funds being offset by that money. So we have that as a very separate line and distinct. You certainly can pass a resolution at some point changing that. And then we just deal with the implications, but it is identified clearly in the budget, so you can see where it's coming from. And we know that we filled that resolution as designed last March.
So there's no, you have your set budget, but there's no requirement or there's nothing to fix that says you can only spend that line item on that line. You can adjust it to be another line in another area.
Operationally, there's some pieces that will move around here and there. If they're, significant, then I bring those and I'll let you know. But typically it's, programming comes to me and says, we're gonna be $300 over. We're going to, not a lot. And it's like, we'll figure out where it's coming from. No big deal. And in this case, Elisa, who is doing our tech, our manager of technical services, made the decision not to piecemeal the purchase because it would be a bigger IT job. And we want to use the town's IT to be able to put this together for us. And to give them a one-day task is much more realistic than saying, we'd like to do this over 3 years and someone's gonna have to keep coming back and remember how our systems work. Just do it once. And we're just gonna pool the money from the 2 years.
Okay.
Okay,
So we're good on
we're
that.
good. Thank you. Okay. G2, notice of the board evaluation. So I guess we're just each to go in and do our own.
There's a Survey Monkey.
Evaluation.
It is a link. It is anonymous. On the public one, the link is not there. It just has the wording there. So for your copies, the link is right on your agenda. And it probably will take you about 15 minutes.
I just did it and it took me about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. You can make comments, or if you feel that your answers are dealt with just by doing the numbers, that's your call. You don't need to have comments for every single one.
Who compiles that?
I will print the entire piece. I will compile the numbers. And then usually we have a closed session in November, and then the board looks at that to see how we're doing. The chair will decide how she wants to present it, but typically in the past, she has looked at the ones that were either 5s or 2s. So if you're in the middle, and then 2 and 4 are the sort ofs, and then the 1 and 5s. So she looks to see what's really off. If there's anything that's very low
We
that
talked
she
about that
focuses.
at our last meeting.
If there's anything that's a really high one that she wants to just look at is why we're doing, how are we taking that? Then she'll pull a few pieces to look at.
Okay. Do we have people from the community filling this out?
No.
Oh, okay. I
So
wasn't
the
sure when you
link,
said the
right,
link.
so the link is only on
On
the
the-
copies that I've given to the board. In
This
the
is-
public agenda, it says number 1 and it has the same statement, but it doesn't have an
Yeah,
active link.
okay.
So
Okay.
this is just you evaluating
Ourselves.
yourself, you evaluating the group, you evaluating me, as how I work with the board, and then you evaluating the chair.
Okay, thank you.
It's really our satisfaction with the board meetings and with how things are progressing.
Okay,
I think is good.
And this is something that we do every November. This particular evaluation was one that was brought to us about 3 or 4 years ago. We did it last term as well. And it is a management level survey that was done of non-for-profit boards. We've changed a few of them because it was a lot of executive directors and president versus chair and CEO. But the pieces are pretty standard. If there's something after you've done this and you've talked about it that you feel you didn't get as an evaluation, it is your evaluation. So you bring that and talk about it, and then we'll find a way for next year to have it be something different if it's not what you were expecting. And if you're happy with it, then
I think it
We
is
just
worth the
keep reusing.
conversation to
yeah,
have a meeting to talk about what the evaluation criteria
okay,
are, whether we're happy with it or not.
okay, but let's wait till we have,
Oh, we
the-
need to
these
first go
results,
through,
yes.
yes, so
Okay.
this one is our staple that we use, and then we look to see if there's something different you want in your future years.
Okay, so thank you. So we'll move on to roundtable. So, community updates and news. I had down there about the ratepayers meeting on Saturday, so I've already discussed that. Are there other updates or news that people want to share? No, okay. BMPL, special events, anything upcoming?
We have our monthly gallery opening. Again, if anybody is interested in joining us, that is the first Saturday in November, which is the 4th. We also have a craft program where we invite a number of vendors. That'll be happening in November as well. So hopefully we'll see some board members at those.
Okay, sounds interesting. All right, okay, so we'll move on to key messages. So in terms of key messages for today, I'm just looking at the agenda. Maybe we could say we reviewed progress to date on the action plan. The finances and the services. I don't know if we need to go into any discussion about the Craig. Or would this be a good opportunity to put in that we
have just a general statement. The public meeting is scheduled for October 31st. I'll add in the time in council chambers. We encourage anyone interested in the matter to attend. So we're not saying one way or the other, we're inviting the debate.
And we don't feel it would be, but I'm curious, we don't feel we should put in our preference?
Well, I think we've been very clear that we feel it should be the Craiglee station and have made the case.
So could
Do
we
you want that in there?
Well, I'm just thinking, what would the harm be in saying, just in case there's people that haven't
I
been
think,
aware?
yeah, history as a lead-in statement might be to say, there's a meeting on this and
We
this is where
feel
it's coming from.
Where we discussed,
And that anybody interested in the matter can come.
Yeah.
So I
I
agree.
think that we're putting forward the recommendation for the name change, and we look forward to
back to
community
the
engagement.
original.
Yeah, I think that's, I agree. I think it's important that this is the initiative that we're,
And this is
The
maybe
library
just a little bit on why, we want to go back to the original name.
I
It's,
think the why is
Yeah.
important.
yeah. Yeah, I think so, because there may be people who read the key messages who don't have any idea what's going on, and I just think,
the more often
Mm.
we can repeat the story, I totally agree. Not the story, the rationale,
I
yes,
just looking at it though, I don't like that it's the hope, like,
Yep.
it's the intention or
Yep.
the desire, because hope is just sort of, well, hope's like, hope to see a Saturday, right? Not really like, there's
plan.
it's, something,
Preference?
it's,
Maybe
preference.
that's not even strong enough.
Something stronger than, I know it's tiny, but it's like, oh, hope's hope, right? But why not?
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Just, there's been a lot of work going into this, both board and staff wise. So.
I'm not sure that's clear, which is why we are designated, like, does that second part of that sentence doesn't fit? And maybe just end it at reverts back to the 1886.
Or
Name.
that it is in keeping, okay, this
It is in
reverts the
keeping.
name back to the.
In
Which is in
keeping
keeping.
with our
with the
designation.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, good. In keeping with our designation as a historic location, is that right word? Is it a
Historic site.
site or
Historic designation.
institution, organization?
With our historic designation.
Yeah, that's better, then we don't have to attach a noun to it.
Is that a
Designation.
provincial thing or a federal thing?
Provincial.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so we've got a thank you to the gardeners, the Truth and Reconciliation.
Maybe, sorry, maybe, at the last sentence, you said encourage anyone who's interested in the matter to attend or write letters of support
To the town
to,
clerk.
to the clerk. Just,
Yeah.
just putting it there, like,
Yeah.
we need more letters of support than the
Naysayers.
naysayers that there might be, or whatever. right?
Do we know if there are any letters of support even now?
There is a couple.
There have
yeah.
been, yes.
Lori wrote one.
And she
Um,
said
as a
some
community
people
member.
that she could reach out to wrote as well.
Okay.
But I know there's been members of the community that have come to us asking, how do we move forward? And we've said, be present and speak, or write a letter, so we know that one of those things are happening with some people.
I know there was a letter sent by a couple and I'm having a moment, I wanna say their names, just like Mary and Barry.
Mary and Barry Lennox,
That who,
Yes.
yeah, and they.
extremely strong supporters
Big supporters.
of our local museum.
And they're, that believe it's.
Highly supportive of reverting the name back to the original.
Keeping it original, yeah,
Yes.
they can't physically attend for health purposes, yeah, or reasons to do that.
But if they sent a letter in, then that would count.
I'm 99.9%
Yes.
sure they've sent a letter in.
Okay,
There's a lot of people.
okay,
So all of those are gonna be compiled when they put out the package, so the public can read them. They will acknowledge them, they won't read all of the letters, but they will acknowledge that they have letters from, various people. Sometimes the clerk reads like a phrase, like we support. We don't, and we'll say the names, because you can't read all of them. And then they encourage people to come up who would like to speak, and then
So in her report to council, what she say, okay, we received 10 letters, 5 support and 5 not. Is that how
I believe that she will be putting them all together and allowing council to. I don't think that she
She
is,
doesn't differentiate.
right, I don't think that she's gonna have any criteria on them, it's just these are the letters received. And they're usually in order of being received.
Oh, okay.
But I agree that it might be more powerful to come from people not on the board. If we, like, our power is in being there and maybe writing a letter, but it's even maybe more powerful to get someone else to write a letter.
Did the different societies that they do? I don't-
I'm not sure. I haven't seen all of the letters, so I don't know, but we can certainly ask if the Historical Society has done that.
Because again, there's another big voice,
Yeah.
historical built in.
And they
Yeah,
have,
it's a
they
big-
have had that conversation at their table and are in agreement that it is the name and should be used.
Yeah.
And that we should be reverting to what is the legal name and the name of council.
Mhm.
okay, so is that it for our key messages?
Yep, so I will add in what was done today that you described as well into our organizational excellence piece, and then we are good. I'll release those today.
Okay, great. So item J is notice of next meeting dates. So our next meeting is scheduled for November 16th, beginning at 1. They will, all of our, just a reminder to anybody listening that all of our agenda materials are posted on the meeting and agenda page of governance.
And then just for the record, I think it's worth noting that a majority of the board will be present at October 31st.
Oh,
It
okay.
is not a board meeting. Board members will be there, obviously, in your board roles as well as community members. But just so that there is sort of an acknowledgement that there is a purpose for us being there, but there isn't an official board meeting.
So is that going into the key messages? Or
No, but I
the
think for
minutes?
our records, we'll
Okay.
have that because these are the confusing pieces about having a group together. We're not nearly as legislated as municipal council is, where when they're present, they're in different corners of the room. But it's not a bad thing to note that we will have a quorum of members who are there for a purpose. but will not be holding an official meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, I would like to move us into the closed session. So do we adjourn the, no, because we're going to return to the open session later.
I'll move.
Okay,
Move.
Sean is going to move and seconded by Marie. That with regard to section 16.14 of the Public Libraries Act, we're going to move into the closed session to address matters pertaining to identifiable individuals and labor relations.